Once upon a time, there was a young witch named Elsie. She had always been fascinated by magic and the supernatural and had spent years studying the craft. Elsie had always been drawn to the darker side of magic and had spent countless nights practicing spells and rituals that many would consider to be too dangerous. One night, during a full moon, Elsie decided to perform a ritual that she had been studying for months. It was said to be one of the most powerful rituals in all of witchcraft, capable of summoning a creature from another realm. Elsie knew that the risks were high, but she was determined to succeed. With her coven gathered around her, Elsie began to chant the incantation. As the words flowed from her lips, the air around her began to shimmer and vibrate. Suddenly, a bright light filled the room, blinding everyone in the coven. When the light faded, Elsie found herself face to face with a werewolf. The creature was massive, with fur as black as coal and eyes that glowed an eerie yellow in the darkness. Elsie felt a thrill of fear and excitement run through her. She had done it. She had summoned a werewolf. As the days turned into weeks, Elsie began to feel a strange connection to the werewolf. She found herself talking to it, confiding in it, and even sharing her food with it. The werewolf, in turn, seemed to understand her and would often nuzzle her affectionately when she was feeling down. But as the full moon approached again, Elsie knew that she couldn't keep the werewolf hidden any longer. The creature was growing restless, and she knew that it would soon be time for it to run wild in the forest. Elsie knew that she had to do something, and fast. She began to hatch a plan, one that would allow the werewolf to roam free during the full moon without being caught by the hunters or the coven. The night of the full moon arrived, and Elsie led the werewolf deep into the forest. She had prepared a special potion, one that would allow the werewolf to blend in with the other creatures of the forest. She had also made sure to mark the boundaries of the forest with special symbols, ones that would keep the werewolf from wandering too far. As the moon rose high in the sky, Elsie watched as the werewolf transformed. Its fur grew thicker, its muscles bulged, and its eyes glowed a fierce yellow. With a howl, the werewolf took off into the forest, disappearing into the darkness. Elsie watched the werewolf go, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. She had managed to keep the creature safe and had even given it a chance to experience the freedom it had been denied for so long. But as the night wore on, Elsie began to feel a sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, something dark and malevolent. She tried to push the feeling aside, but it lingered, growing stronger with each passing moment. Suddenly, Elsie heard a rustling in the bushes. She turned, her heart pounding in her chest, and saw a group of hunters emerge from the shadows. They were armed with silver-tipped arrows and swords, and their eyes were filled with a deadly determination. Elsie knew that she was in trouble. She had been caught, and there was no escaping the hunters' wrath. She tried to run, but one of the hunters caught her by the arm, dragging her to the ground. As the other hunters closed in, Elsie knew that her time was running out. She closed her eyes, waiting for the end to come. But just as the hunters were about to strike, A fierce growl echoed through the forest. The hunters turned, their weapons at the ready, and saw the werewolf standing before them. The creature was massive, its fur bristling and its eyes glowing with a fierce determination. The hunters hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do, but the werewolf didn't give them a chance to decide. With a roar, it lunged at the hunters, its massive jaws snapping shut on one of their arms. The other hunters scrambled to defend themselves, but the werewolf was too fast and too powerful. In a matter of minutes, the hunters had been overpowered. The werewolf had taken down each one of them, leaving them bleeding and unconscious on the ground. Elsie watched in awe as the creature turned to her, its eyes softening as it nuzzled her hand. As the sun began to rise, Elsie knew that it was time to take the werewolf back to her home. She couldn't risk leaving it out in the open, not with the hunters and the coven on the lookout. With a heavy heart, she led the werewolf back to her house, knowing that she would have to keep it hidden once again. Over the next few weeks, Elsie nursed the werewolf back to health. It had been badly injured during the fight with the hunters, and Elsie had to use all of her magic to heal it. But as the days went by, Elsie began to realize that something had changed. The werewolf was no longer just a creature to her. It had become a friend, a companion, and maybe even something more. Elsie knew that she shouldn't feel the way she did. After all, the werewolf was just a creature. But she couldn't deny the feelings that were growing inside of her. One night, as the full moon approached once again, Elsie made a decision. She knew that she couldn't keep the werewolf hidden forever, and she knew that she had to face the consequences of her action. She decided to take the werewolf to the coven and to plead for their forgiveness. As they approached the coven's meeting place, Elsie could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that the coven would be angry and that they might even banish her from their ranks. But she had to try. For the sake of the werewolf and for her own conscience. When they arrived, Elsie was met with angry glares from the other witches. They demanded to know what she had done and why she had brought a werewolf to their doorstep. Elsie tried to explain, but her words fell on deaf ears. Just as things were about to turn violent, the werewolf stepped forward. It looked around at the other witches, its eyes shining with a fierce determination. And then, to everyone's surprise, it began to speak. "I am not just a creature," it said, its voice deep and resonant. "I am a being with thoughts and feelings just like you. Elsie has shown me kindness and compassion, and I ask that you do the same." The coven was stunned. They had never heard a werewolf speak before, and they had never considered the idea that they might be more than just animals. But the werewolf's words had a profound effect, and slowly the other witches began to soften. In the end, the coven agreed to let the werewolf stay, under the condition that Elsie take responsibility for its actions. Elsie agreed, feeling a sense of relief and gratitude wash over her. She had done something reckless, but she had also managed to make a difference. Over the next few years, Elsie lived with the werewolf, becoming its closest friend and ally. She taught it how to control its wild instincts and how to blend in with the human world. And in return, the werewolf taught her about loyalty, bravery, and the power of friendship. Together, Elsie and the werewolf faced countless challenges, from hunters and other supernatural creatures to the coven itself. But through it all, they remained loyal to each other and to the bonds that they had forged. In the end, Elsie knew that she had found something truly special. She had found a friend, a companion, and maybe even something more. And as she looked into the werewolf's eyes, she knew that she would always be grateful for the night she had accidentally summoned him, and for the journey that had brought them together. If you like my story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video for more and similar stories.